Good morning. Welcome to another episode of Tea, Coffee, and Torah. Now, I have to confess right now, the stats are in the favor of coffee. We are now 5-0 on coffee versus tea. I tend to have my tea in the afternoon. So I'm either going to have to switch up my daily routine or we're going to have to do some of these discussions in the afternoon when I normally take my tea. Cats are not really my favorite animal, I confess. So this is my daughter's cup, which I stole. But I do have we're going to spend a little bit more time together this morning. I don't know if you can hear the locusts in the background. They are very, very loud. Hopefully, they don't overpower our discussion, but they're coming out. It's louder because we're starting to go into the fall. And you're starting to begin to feel some of those fall signs. Our week is a little bit cooler, beginning yesterday, which is really, really nice. And it's been a nice change. So we have been talking about population collapse, and we're discussing this from a biblical perspective. What does the Torah, what does the Old Testament, the Tanakh, have to say on these issues? These are not Jewish issues. These are not Israel issues that are solely an issue that was for the past or for ancient Israel. Everything in the Bible is really for modern day. It all it's all relatable. History repeats itself, whether it's ancient history or modern. So we are going to delve into the discussion today. So grab your cup of joe. I know it might be a little late for some of you and earlier for others. So grab your cup of joe or your tea and let's have a great discussion. So, we as a people really want tomorrow. We want the future to be something that is better and brighter than today. We want to have something to look forward to. And that's a healthy outlook. We should all want a future and a tomorrow that's better from today. But there are factors. There are real world life factors that go into making the future something better for all of us. Now, one of those factors is the very first Abrahamic blessing, which, as I mentioned in our previous episode, episode 4, is based on children. And there's something that we've kind of slipped into because we are very, very comfortable. And that is, we think that we can just maintain a status quo. But the reality is that we are either contracting or expanding as a society. A status quo is really an illusion that really kind of contributes to our decline because we think if we're just maintaining the status quo, we're okay. If you've been in any organization, whether it's a church, a civic group, a political group, it's either expanding or it is contracting. There is no, we're just going to maintain the line and, just ho-hum. Because people get turned off to that. There's no energy. There's no vivacious. There's no thing that says, this is where it's at. This is where truth is. This is where the future is. And people want to join it. And so I'm not going to say the trick, but really the endeavor, and it can be difficult to maintain, is to keep those ideas, to keep those values relevant, so you're always attracting people to be part of it. And in this case, we're talking about the Abrahamic blessing of having children, something that we have really lost in America because of our affluence. So when it comes to having kids, these are things that I think that we have been conditioned to accept. And it's not just always conditioning. It's the fact that life has constraints. Despite our affluence, it brings with it a lot of pressure, a lot of hard work. So this is what I hear when it comes to people having kids. They'll say, I can't afford it. I don't have the patience. I don't have the time. I want a career, or I'd rather travel. So our people as a religion and a nation and a culture have begun to decline because we've made excuses for a family. Something that was really, I mean, if you look throughout history, we've really depended on children for our future. Now we have corporations, we have technology that does not make children a basic necessity that we see in our day-to-day lives. But I'm going to share with you, we'll eventually get into this, about how the divine plan can help us change it, and things that you and I, each of us, can do to make a difference, to reverse this decline, and to make us strong again. You know, God's plan began with a dream. It was a vision that people could be great and strong when they number as the stars of heaven. And nations today have taken a different route for any nation to reproduce, to replace its current population. You know, I think the population of the United States is about 350 million people. And to maintain that, which is directly correlates to our standard of living, our national security, in order to just replace what we have, the status quo, every family, or this really is women have to have 2.7 children. It really ranges between 2.7 in volume 1 of Yahweh Exists. I said 2.11. And that fluctuates based on the current mortality rates within that nation. So sometimes it's 0.7, 0.11. But what that really means in real terms is women need to have between 3 and 4 children per woman in order to make a vibrant, growing, and thriving nation. And it's something that I don't think is too hard for us to achieve. It may be hard to do independently, but that is what we're going to get into eventually, because this is where a community and a support system really, really helps. So today, our population collapse is where we are having falling birth rates. Germany is, where they need the 2.7 to replace its current population. They're only having 1.35 children per couple. Spain is 1.13. In the UK, it's 1.14. And in America, it's 2.7 children. So in America, it is let's see, I'm looking at my statistics here. Maybe I didn't write these down. I believe America was right around 1.6. So we are right there with the rest of the nations with our declining populations. So what nations do, and this occurs both naturally as well as a policy that nations pursue. So whether your government is pursuing this policy or not, it just simply naturally occurs. And that's the fact that nations make up for their population collapse through immigration. And when you have a mass population collapse, you make up for that with mass immigration. But we are not attracting the best, the brightest, the most competent people among these immigrants, because those people are in their own home countries. They are thriving. They are economically secure. They are happy. And you're not going to immigrate to a new land and start all over again when you're doing well in your own homeland. Why should you leave? So what this means is that the immigrants that come into America, and we're going to look at this from a biblical perspective, because it's not like the Bible didn't tell us what was going to happen. It's really a lot of common sense. So what happens with this replacement immigration is that it attracts the poorest, the least educated, the least skilled. It attracts those people who are struggling so much in their own country that they'd rather go to a land where they may not know the language, where they may even live on the streets for a while or work some real menial job where it's almost kind of like being back in slavery, where you're working so hard so that you and your descendants can have a better future. The other thing, and this has really become very, very popular in our modern history. The UK actually did this with Australia, back in this founding of Australia, but it's occurring today, with a lot of your South American countries as well as countries, overseas. And that is, they are purposely sending the dregs of their society to the United States. They are sending convicted criminals, whether these are murderers, rapists, thieves, a lot of your drug dealers. They are sending to America because it reduces the stress that is placed on their own economy, on their own government in dealing with those issues. So these people that come in mass, they don't value Judeo-Christian values, the idea of liberty and justice for all. In fact, they are very, very comfortable with an idea that they can be part of a minority ruling class, as long as they get on the right side of the fence, and they have no problem with oppressing. Their ideas, their mindset is totally alien to the United States Constitution and to the ideas the founding forefathers had when they established the United States of America. There was a Smithsonian study back in 2014, and I've looked for it. I haven't found it since. If I find it, I'll post it. But it talked about the importance of history, genetic history in a family. So if you had something that occurred in your family, whether maybe somebody almost drowned and then they later had children, you can actually inherit a tendency for a fear of drowning or a fear of water. Everything in your history is actually written on your DNA. It's like a legacy. So the Western world, whether you look at Europe or you look at the United Kingdom, especially America, we all have this rich history where we fight for liberty, we fight for justice, we fight for ideas and for universal human rights as for our society. But other cultures don't share that value system. And now they're coming en masse into America, and you see a lot of chaos because they are bringing values that are alien to our way of life. So this is nothing new. This is actually a policy. It's a naturally occurring policy that has occurred throughout history. Ancient Egypt, you have the first and second intermediate periods, which occurred due to mass immigration, which caused the old kingdom of Egypt to fall. So today, people do this because they want a better way of life. Now, this is actually, though, today very intentional, where in the past it was just a means of necessity. It's what people do in order to survive, in order to have a better life. Today, it is a policy that our governments are actively pursuing because they want to keep the population where it is. They want to keep society thriving. So the birth rates in the United States and in Europe have provoked the UN to pursue what is called replacement migration policies. And I'm actually going to post this document in the comments below. And if I can't put it there, then I'll put it on my Facebook page. But it says this replacement migration policy intends to take people from third world countries and replace the native populations. Now, according to Scripture, one of the signs of a nation's sins coming to the full is the fact that you do have replacement migration. Let me share with you what Ezekiel says in Ezekiel 7, verses 23 through 26. Ezekiel says, "Make a chain, for the land is full of bloody crimes. The city is full of violence. Wherefore, I will bring the worst of the heathen, and they shall possess the houses. I will make the pomp and the strong to cease, Their holy places will be defiled. Destruction comes, and they shall seek peace, but there will be none. Mischief shall come upon mischief, rumor upon rumor, and then they shall seek the vision of the prophet. But here's the reason why it fails. Here's the reason why they do not find the peace and the prosperity for which they speak. But the law shall perish from the priest. It is this departure from divine law that causes our way to no longer prosper. And the counsel from the ancients, verse 27. The hands of the people of the land shall be troubled. I will do to them after their way, and according to their deserts I will judge them, and they shall know that I am Yahweh. You know, San Francisco is a prime example of this. You have people who are squatting in houses. You have people who are paying mortgages while immigrants, homeless, whoever it is, go into the houses, they squat, they destroy it, they defecate everywhere. And the homeowners, the legal people who are paying all the bills on this property, have no rights. They have no access to their own land and to what they have made an investment in order to further their own lives. There's an adage that we have in the West. It actually, I believe it came from a Latin phrase, where it says, those who do not know history are doomed to repeat it. And we think that we are always going to be in the cycle. I mean, we take this thing like, there's nothing we can do. We could never be a Messiah. We take a very defeatist attitude, but we can do it. We can do something because we are not predestined to repeat history. We are not predestined to do anything. And change is actually easier than what we think it is. First of all, we do know history, and we do have the power to change it. Just because there is a consequence that is there for an action, all we have to do is change our actions to get a different result. So what we struggle with are taking the necessary steps so we don't repeat the past. So one of the first steps that we can take is choosing to have a different outcome than what ancient Israel did. We can choose to invest in the hope of our future, and that is our children, by having strong, vibrant families. Again, it's that all it takes is everybody having 3 to 4 kids per family, and all of a sudden we're thriving again. It's not like you have to go out there and have 6, 8, 10, 12 kids. Although the nations that are doing that will replace us much faster than those of us who do have fewer children. And, you know, Ezekiel doesn't just come from this idea that the heathen, the worst of the heathen, replacing a native population as though that's just something out of the clear blue sky. Ezekiel actually found that idea based on the curses of the law. These are just naturally occurring consequences that we face when we depart from a way of life that works. So this is what this is what Deuteronomy 28, and this is going to be verse 20 states. It says, and Yahweh will send upon you cursing, vexation, and rebuke, in all that you set your hand to do until you be destroyed, and you perish quickly because of the wickedness of your doings, and you have forsaken me. Verse 33, the fruit of your land, your labors, shall a nation which you do not know eat up, and you shall only be possessed and crushed always. So the policies that we have today have eaten up our labors. Have you gone to the grocery store and seen how much food costs today versus what it did 3-4 years ago? You know, how many of us are, it's like we get to the register and like, oh, we can't afford that. You know, our money doesn't stretch like it did. Our cost, our standard of living is being eaten up, just like Deuteronomy says. Our money is being laundered through foreign wars. But most of the issues come from national indebtedness, the government printing money, and the government just having this unrestricted spending, something that we feel like each of us is hopeless to control. Each of us has no power to change anything. So we are becoming oppressed. We are becoming crushed. But just as quickly as we became oppressed, we can reverse it and become prosperous once more. It all depends on the way we choose and what we choose to do. And what I would encourage each of you right now is to make the mindset. If you're of childbearing age, just put in your mind, hey, I'm going to have 3, 4 kids. But I do want to give you hope as we continue our discussion on ways that you don't have to be alone in this, and ways in which hopefully you can have some support through your community and through those around you. The end result that the law tells us, and this is within the Torah, the end result of our policies of not having children, of not following the divine plan, in Deuteronomy 28:43, verse 44, this is how it ends up if we continue on our current trajectory. It says, the stranger that is within you will get high above you, and you will become very low. He shall lend to you, and you will not lend to him. He will be the head, and you will be the tail. You know, for one, I am pretty fed up with religious people telling me that, oh, the Torah, it's just for ancient Israel, or, oh, the Torah, it's just for the Jews. BS. I'm sorry. I'm going to call it, because Torah is natural law. If you follow it, you're going to naturally have blessings. If you refuse it, you're naturally going to have curses. It doesn't matter if you're Israelite, if you're Jewish, if you're Arab, if you're Israel. It doesn't matter on your nationality. It's natural law. All the Torah does is it takes logical common sense and it puts it in a social compact. So when we follow it, we're going to naturally receive those blessings. It's just cause and effect. Deuteronomy 30, verse 16 tells us to choose life. Notice what we learn from Deuteronomy and Ezekiel 28 is the idea that if we refuse to choose life, if we refuse to embrace life, the natural consequence is nihilism and national suicide. But it's always a choice. We reap what we sow. So all we have to do is change what we sow. It's where you and I can make a difference in this population collapse. We can all contribute something. Again, even if you're over childbearing age, there is still something you can do. So we're not trapped at all. I know that a lot of what I talk about lately may sound a little doom and gloomy, but it isn't. The first thing that you learn, like in a 10-step program, is admitting that there's a problem. And what I've wanted to do over the course of these first few episodes is just really identify the problem, and then also address practical things that we can do. So I want to continue this today. I gave you some statistics. I hope that you will look at this on your own, and not sweep it under the rug, because I think that is the American way to do, because it really may not affect you, or maybe you feel helpless, or you feel like, there's nothing really that I can contribute. We just kind of don't address it. We're not proactive in anything. And I think we have a lot more joy. We have a lot more hope. And we have a future when we are proactive, when we do something, when we contribute. And that is what we're going to be getting into more on our next episode of Tea, Coffee, and Torah. So please join me for episode 6 next time. Have a fantastic, wonderful day. Shalom.